Hey everyone, and welcome back to Hoopers Nation, your top destination for NBA basketball content. When a team wins the NBA championship, it's common sense for the GM and the front office to try and keep the exact same team together. And while many people thought this was the direction the Los Angeles Lakers were heading in the 2020 offseason, it wasn't exactly the case. While they did manage to re-sign key players like Anthony Davis and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, they let other supporting cast players go and instead brought in some fresh faces. But what are the Lakers' odds at repeating with a different team? In this video, we'll take a look at the Lakers' offseason acquisitions and losses, and how these impact their odds at repeating as NBA champions. But before we do, please make sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on Hoopers Nation post notifications for more NBA content. Let's start by looking at the Lakers' offseason moves, who they lost, who they brought back, and who they brought in. Rajon Rondo left as a free agent to the Atlanta Hawks. So did Avery Bradley and Dwight Howard, who signed with the Miami Heat and Philadelphia 76ers respectively. Green and JaVale McGee were traded away to the OKC Thunder and to the Cavaliers in two different deals. J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters deals expired, but nobody signed them yet. LA also waived Quinn Cook. Looking at these, the Lakers lost 4 players who were part of their supporting cast in their championship quest, and 5 if you count Avery Bradley, who didn't participate in the NBA bubble, but was a starter earlier in the season. At first, this sounds like heavy trouble. Even though a deal hasn't been formally announced, the Lakers are expected to re-sign Anthony Davis very soon. LeBron James just signed a 2-year, $85 million max extension. The team also brought back key role players Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Markieff Morris, re-signed veteran Jared Dudley to a minimum deal, and gave Kostas Antetokounmpo a new 2-way contract. Other than Rajon Rondo, Caldwell-Pope and Morris were the other 2 most important role players in the Lakers' 2020 playoff run. So at least they managed to bring them back. Finally, the Lakers signed big man Montrezl Harrell and Marc Gasol and brought in experienced sharpshooter Wesley Matthews. LA also traded for Dennis Schroeder, Alfonso McKinnie, and Jordan Bell. It was later reported that Bell would be cut for salary cap purposes, while McKinnie will stick with the team. At first sight, it looks like the Lakers made up their losses with solid free agent acquisitions, right? On paper, this Lakers team is better than last year's. As abysmal as Danny Green looked at times on the offensive end, he was still a serviceable perimeter defender. His $16 million was too expensive for the role Green was playing, though, and the Lakers found a much cheaper and still solid perimeter defender in Alfonso McKinnie. The Rajon Rondo exit is probably the loss that could hurt the most. He provided excellent skills as a secondary playmaker alongside LeBron James and proved that playoff Rondo is indeed real. A mediocre shooter at best, Rondo shot 42% from 3 in the 2020 playoffs, and that mark jumps to 44% when you exclude corner threes. The team also lost his leadership and very valuable playoff and championship experience. Dwight Howard had a renaissance year in LA this past season. He had the second highest effective field goal percentage among big men at 71.9%, showing he can still be efficient despite no longer being the athletic freak he once was. He also shot 78% at the rim, was an elite alley-oop threat, and also was a very good interior defender. JaVale McGee played the exact same role as Howard, yet was slightly less efficient than him stats-wise. Unfortunately, these two were held to limited action in the playoffs given their non-shooters and messed up the spacing of the team. And again, Avery Bradley didn't make it to the bubble, so losing him wasn't too big of a deal anyway. But he was still a useful 3-and-D guard in the regular season, even though his numbers don't look that pretty. And as much as you usually want to bring back your same championship squad, losing these guys really isn't that big of a deal. You'll see it's an even smaller deal when we look closer in a matter of moments at the players who replaced them. And what's the common pattern with the players the Lakers got rid of? The front office refused to overpay for aging contributors that are likely to drop off next season anyway. As good of a finals as Rondo had, how likely was it that he'd do the same this season at 35 years of age? Was Danny Green truly a net positive? What good does Howard and McGee's efficiency do if they can't stay on the floor in the playoffs? Now, let's take a deep look at all of their replacements. Dennis Schroeder is the guy who'll be taking Rondo's place. Schroeder has openly expressed his desire to be a starter, and his numbers from last season justify that. He averaged 19 points and 4 assists on 47% shooting from the field and 39% from 3, all while mostly coming off the bench. He shot 63% at the rim, by far a career high, and excelled on corner threes. He isn't nearly the playmaker that Rondo is, but he makes up for it with his much more diverse offensive skill set and his youth. Like it or not, Schroeder is an improvement over Rondo. Wesley Matthews is one of the top 3 and D-wing commodities in the NBA, and he's certainly more useful than Danny Green at this point. Excluding his rookie season and this past one with the Milwaukee Bucks, Matthews has been a double-digit scorer in each of his other 9 NBA seasons. He's a career 38% three-point shooter, and perhaps most importantly, he doesn't need the ball in his hands a whole lot to be an effective and dangerous scorer, which is the perfect trait to have when you have ball-dominant teammates like LeBron and Anthony Davis. As we said, Matthews may not be the defender that Danny Green is, but Alfonso McKinnie can provide similar services in that department, and the Lakers have a young guy to continue developing in their system. Getting rid of Green and replacing him with these two guys was absolutely the right call. Now, on to the big men. Let's start with Marc Gasol, given he's much easier to break down. Even though he's close to 36 years of age and can no longer be a 30-plus minute star player, he fits perfectly into the Lakers. He's a great interior defender, has a smart mind, an experienced career, and championship reps. And most importantly, he can stretch the floor really well. Gasol shot 38% on threes last year, 78th percentile among big men. Having him on the roster allows Anthony Davis to play his desired power forward position most of the time without the Lakers having to give up spacing, as they did with Howard and McGee last year. Gasol may not be an energetic scorer anymore, but Montrezl Harrell sure is. Standing at 6'8", Harrell is energy personified. He makes up for his lack of height with his enormous hustle and the energy with which he plays the game of basketball. He's an aggressive finisher who can also catch and finish LeBron's beloved alley-oops. Harrell averaged 19 points, 7 rebounds, and a block on 58% shooting and is the reigning 6th man of the year. The fit concerns are fair, especially because he isn't the best interior defender and sometimes struggles mightily in the paint as he doesn't have the height to contest other dominant big men that well. But he can hang on the perimeter and play good team defense. He can't really shoot threes, but the Lakers have 2 very different bigs in him and Gasol that they can throw at opponents depending on what the matchup and the game situation requires. They just didn't have that versatility with Howard and McGee last year. Those 2 are big-time upgrades over the Lakers' last 2 bigs and will help the team tremendously. So did the Lakers really upgrade across the board? Yes, they did. All while bringing back AD, securing LeBron for 3 more seasons, and retaining top-role players. That looks like a dream offseason. Are you still not convinced they're still very much the favorites to repeat? Let's take a look at their projected depth chart. In the starting lineup, the Lakers will have Dennis Schroeder and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope at the guard spots, LeBron and Davis as their forwards, and Harrell at center. James will assume the point guard role as the lead ball handler surrounded by very capable scorers, while AD and Harrell exchange positions on the defensive end so that Davis is the main paint defender and Harrell guards the opposing team's power forward. That's a loaded starting lineup that'll be dangerous on both ends. But their bench looks great as well. They'll have Alex Caruso and Wesley Matthews as backup guards, with Kyle Kuzma and Markieff Morris as the bench forwards, and Marc Gasol rounding it out as the backup center. As we mentioned earlier, the Lakers will have the freedom of switching and adjusting their lineups depending on the matchup. Playing a taller team and need the extra height? Swap in Caruso for Morris or Kuzma for Schroeder and Harrell. Need a 5-out like floor stretching lineup? Bring in Wes Matthews and Marc Gasol instead and watch LeBron destroy the opposition. The Lakers will also have Alfonso McKinnie and Jared Dudley as extra reserves, though it's likely they don't see too much playing time. The team should be able to find an extra guard that will sign for the minimum. Whether we like it or not, the best player in the world is still LeBron James, as he proved these last playoffs. His running mate is Anthony Davis, who happens to be the best big man in the game of basketball today. These 2 will be surrounded by perfect complementary pieces, and, most importantly, the team has the versatility to immediately adjust to any counter their rivals make. The Lakers enter the 2020-21 offseason as the team to beat and the one with the biggest target on its back, as it should be. Don't be surprised if they end up repeating, because as good as last year's squad was, they found a way to make upgrades across the board without losing any of their most important pieces. It is an uncommon path for an NBA championship franchise to take, but these Lakers are now as dangerous as ever. Who do you think was the Lakers' biggest offseason signing? Can LA go back-to-back and win the 2021 NBA championship? Make sure to comment your thoughts down below, as well as leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.